Chances.
I don't know. Have you seen boy pockets sometimes?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Some girl pockets.
Yeah.
They're like so small. I know.
Like,
Well, I know back home, like, all
Where's the
valley all
spots
the
at
time.
the
So, I want flakes in, I'm like,
okay. So, good afternoon. Is it noon?
Not yet.
Good, almost noon to you? My name is Graham Mitchell. I get to talk to you today. Mostly I'm a school teacher. I teach at Leander High School. That's what I've been doing for 15 years. But also I give talks sometimes. And I sometimes talk in other cities. I sometimes talk at universities and things like that. I've been to elementary schools before. And today's my first day to talk to the middle school. And so they asked me, they said, if you could speak to middle schoolers for 40 minutes, what would you talk about? You know, if you could talk about anything that you wanted to, and I'm like, that would be awesome. That's what I want to talk about. And I'm not trying to imply that you are not currently awesome. Okay, I'm sure some of you are already quite awesome. And so you're just gonna, this could be review, and you're gonna see, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah, I got that. But some of you may pick up something new. Hopefully it'll be entertaining, reduce your time in any case. So my first thing that you need to be aware of is one of the reasons why I'm qualified to talk about awesomeness is because I myself am awesome. All right? And right here. I mean, you can't fake that. It says so right on the slide. I, Graham Mitchell, am very awesome. And that's me. So you can prove it's not some other Graham Mitchell that's being talked about. So, but something a little more realistic is that if you go into Google, you type in the name Graham Mitchell, my webpage, grahammitchell.com, is the #1 hit. So I'm the #1 hit for Graham Mitchell on Google, and I think that's pretty awesome. I'm also in a rock band, actually 2 rock bands. In one of the bands I'm the lead singer, and I play bass guitar, and in some of the other bands I play electric guitar or acoustic guitar, depending on the gig and depending on what is necessary. I have been playing for a long time, and I'm actually good enough now that people pay me to play in their band. So I have made probably more than $10,000 as a player in bands in my history. And I think that's pretty cool. I can also play piano, decent. I can play French horn pretty well. I was first chair all region 3 years in a row, and then I play flute as well and trumpet. Although I'm less good at those. But I can do all those things, and I think that's kind of awesome as well. I'm pretty good at school. I started reading at the age of 3. They had me tested in 1st grade, and I was already reading at a 9th grade level. And so I can read a lot of pretty complicated stuff pretty quickly, and have been able to do that a really long time. It made school pretty easy for me because I already knew so much stuff because of reading. You know, when I had already read big novels, it was embarrassing. I read a novel when I was 6 years old that we used for my 12th grade novel in English. Like in 12th grade, we did it as a class, and we studied the novel in English class. And I'm like, I read this when I was 6. And they're like, read it again? So, The Hobbit. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Maybe not a best choice for a senior English novel, but anyway. And I'm also pretty good at math. I went to college on scholarship. They gave me, money because I did so well on some tests that I got to school there. I have my degree in computer science. Computer science is what they call people who are programmers. So people who write software for a living. You know how if you download an app to your phone? I'm the guy who wrote that app. Well, probably not that app, right? But I can write apps. That's the kind of thing that I can do, is I can write software. Not actually what I do for a living, is that I teach high school kids how to program. I teach the basics of computer science at Leander High School. And that's what I do. So I've been doing it for 15 years. I've taught about 2,000 kids the basics of programming. I think that's pretty awesome as well, because it's not something that everybody can do. Just create their own software. My kids like me so much that in their spare time they make Photoshops. It's done by high school students. So one of my kids thought it would be a good idea to Photoshop me on the cover of Call of Duty. This is for computer science 2, because Eddie Salinas was in my computer science 2 class at the time that he made his Photoshop. That's actually not a Photoshop, that's just what I look like when I take my shirt off. Oh, you don't believe that? Why are you laughing? Okay. So that's a Photoshop too, but the point is my kids really like me, and they do silly things in their free time. I can make bread from scratch. I can just take flour and water in a bowl and a spatula and an oven, and I can make bread, loaf of bread. I need a little yeast and I need a little honey. Like, a third of a cup of honey and a little packet of yeast. And I don't need a bread machine, I don't need a mixing, a mixer. I can make bread. It takes about 6 hours and it is amazing. So, that's Super Mario Galaxy 2. All 242 stars, 100%. New Super Mario Brothers for the Wii, 100%. All 5 stars, right there. Lego Star Wars, the full one, all 100%. So all that's the full Lego Star Wars, the one that's like 1 through 6, like not just the 1 through 3 movies and not just the 4, 6, 6 movies. That is all 100%. It only took me 6 to 7 hours. So, but sometimes I get bored with playing games, and so last year, about a year ago, actually, I kind of got bored, and I wrote a program to play Pokemon. So this is the code. I mean, there's really several hundred lines of it, but this is some of the code.
You ever sat down and just like type?
Yeah, that's what I do. What this does is this plays Pokemon Fire Red on an emulator. I load up Pokemon Fire Red on a Game Boy Advance emulator, and then I run my program, and then what it does is it moves Ash, just makes him walk back and forth in the grass until there's a battle, and then he fights the battle for me, and then when it wins, then it just goes on to all the screen where you got the experience and stuff, and it goes back and then just walks back and forth. So I have, like, if I have Magikarp and I want to level him up, I just load up Magikarp in the party, load up the program, turn it on, and then walk away, and then wake up the next morning and he's 20 levels higher than it was before, because it just walks back and forth and fights for me. So I think that's pretty awesome, like fairly awesome that it does that. But I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of, and this is the thing that's probably the hardest, is that I can get along with just about anybody. Like, I can sit down and have a conversation with somebody for 20 minutes, no matter who they are, and when the conversation is done, they'll be like, man, that guy Mitchell's a pretty cool guy. He seems like, those people that they just get on your nerves, and it's not that they're a bad person or that you want them to die or anything, but it's like, if you don't stop talking to me, I'm going to punch you in the face. Okay, you wouldn't say that, right? Because that's kind of rude and probably not okay, but you feel that, like, I can talk to that kid for half an hour. I'm like, it's cool. I can get along with pretty much anybody. And that's something that I'm most proud of, because that's something that I think was the hardest for me to learn. And that took the longest amount of time to do that. So and that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically your life in middle school. Because middle school is kind of weird. Do you ever feel like 5 years ago your life was simple and now your life is crazy? And now you wonder, like, what is going on? Like, some days you're just like, what just happened? Like, how did this just happen? Like, I have no idea what just happened. And something's going on. So let me back up a little bit and try to explain a little bit about this situation. So, about 200 years ago, your life would have worked like this. You would grow up to do whatever your parents did. If your father was a baker and you were a boy, you would be a baker. If your mother made clothing, you would grow up and make clothing. If your father was a carpenter, you would grow up to be a carpenter. Okay? And so, both the parents were at home all day. Dads were doing whatever the work was for the family. Moms were making clothes, right? Because you didn't go to the store and buy clothes, you made clothes. You would take fabric, you would make shirts and dresses and pants and stuff out of that. So the girls would follow mom around all day when she's 3 years old, and they would start learning that stuff. It was all real life. There was none of this, when am I going to need this when I grow up? Why am I learning this? This seems stupid. I don't understand what this is for. It's like, oh, I'm going to grow up to be a carpenter. I'm watching my dad build something out of wood. I'm going to need to know how to do this exact thing in 10 years. You would start following around once you were like basically no longer breastfeeding, and you could kind of walk on your own, and you would just spend all day with them, and you would learn to do whatever it is that they did all day long. And then when you were about 14, you were like doing the family job for real. You would help your dad around the place. You would make some of the easier bakery goods or whatever, you know, like some of the stuff. And then a lot of times you get married at age 15, you'd be off on your own, all right? But something weird happened. Oh, by the way, you wouldn't even go to school. Most people didn't go to school at this time. If they did, it was only about 4 hours a day. You would go to a school, you'd be in one room with a dozen people, you would be learning how to read or something, and you go home and you would only do that some of the time. Because mostly you spent all day learning how to do what it was going to do when you grew up. Okay? But then we invented factories in the late 1800s. The factories are cool because you can make things that you can't make by hand with a factory. You can make machines to build stuff for us, which turns out really amazing. Right? A lot of good things came out of that. Without factories, we would never have the internet. Without factories, we could never land a man on the moon. Okay, so that we got this level of skill of doing things once we had machines that could do stuff consistently that we didn't have before. But finally, for the first time in 10,000 years of society, the dad would go off to work. He would not be working in the home. He would be going off to some factory somewhere, doing the work there. And so at first the kids went with the dad, because that's what they did. And they did that for probably 10 years or so. But they kept getting hurt. They get their fingers cut off in machines. Like, for real, you should look it up. And so they actually passed a law that said it's illegal to have children go to the factories. They used to have kids try to do the work in the factories too, and then they said it's illegal. You can't do it anymore. So now what? Mom's at home, making dresses or whatever she's doing, learning how to make cakes from scratch. Girls are spending time with mom. Dads are at the factory. Where's little Jimmy? You know, he's, who knows? So let's make school. So he's got somewhere to learn how to become a factory worker. Because his dad can't teach him because it's too dangerous. He has to basically learn now in the classroom. Not perfect, but at least it's better than him just wandering the streets or something. Then we had a war, and all the men were overseas fighting, and then the women had to go to work. So that we could still make tanks and stuff while they were gone. And then the women kind of said, hey, this is kind of cool, this whole working thing. Maybe I can buy clothes instead of making it. Maybe I can buy food instead of making it all the time. And so now moms are at work. So the kids, for the first time ever, only like 80 years now, they're gone. They're not spending all day with their parents. They're spending day with each other. Which is a really pretty big deal. It's a huge change. There's some good aspects of that change. As I say, we can build computers now, but we couldn't before. We can, you do not have to do what your parents do. Whatever your parents do for a living, you don't have to do that. Okay? You don't have to, if your dad is a baker, you don't have to grow up to be a baker. You can grow up to be something else instead. Okay? That's cool. The downside is, now you have to decide what to do. Before, it was decided for you. You would grow up to be that because that's the only choice you had. Now, you have to figure out what you want to do. So on the good side, you have a choice. On the bad side, you have a choice. Now you have to figure out, like, what am I going to do? What makes it worse is that with schools now, we're not sure what you're going to do when you grow up. So what do we teach you? Everything. Everything. Exactly. We don't know if you're going to end up having to be an engineer or having to be, you know, a chef or whatever. So we have to teach you everything because all the jobs are more complicated than they used to be. So it takes a lot more school. And it is not sure what you're going to do when you grow up. Even if you did know what you were going to do when you grow up, you're probably going to be wrong. And even if you're right and you end up doing that, maybe you'll only do it for 10 years and then the company will close. Right? I mean, there's companies all the time that have been around for 50 years and then they have to go bankrupt and close the doors. So what do you do? What if you do, if you like spend your whole life preparing for that one job, and now the job doesn't even exist anymore? That's why we have to teach you everything, right? You have to learn some math and some science and some whatever, so that you're kind of ready for anything. And so in some ways it's good, and in some ways it's pretty super bad. Because you're kind of here in the middle like, I'm not sure what to do with my life. Another thing that's happening is that your bodies are doing weird stuff. Because you used to be out on your own when you were 14. You would get married at 14, 15, you'd move off on your own, you would be go ahead and doing whatever it is that your parents would do, you would work for a living. So your body has not gotten the message that that's not the way that society works anymore. It's trying to get you physically ready to work on your own. That's why your bodies are starting to change and stuff. It's trying to get you mentally ready to be on your own and to be part of society. So your brain starts switching it so that instead of being like, what do my parents think about me? What do grown-ups think about me? Your brain is telling you, pay attention to what everybody else thinks about you. The chemicals in your brain that are telling you to do that are super strong right now. Pay attention to what everybody else is thinking about you. Because your body thinks this anyway. Because in 4 years you're going to be on your own. You're going to be living by yourself, you're going to be working by yourself, you're going to be marrying somebody, you're going to be doing what, and so your body is getting ready to get used to doing that kind of stuff. Because if you do not care what other people think about you, then they'll kick you out of the village. Right? If you can't get along with the other people in your little village, and you're supposed to be the guy who fixes their clothes for them when their clothes have a tear or a rip or they need to get something changed slightly, and everybody doesn't like you and you don't fit in, then you're like out in the woods trying to do, it's no good. So in order to survive, your brain is starting to get you ready to fit in with society. But the society that you're in right now is not real. This is not what you're going to be doing forever when you're grown up. So what's happened to social life in middle school, and this is where I think a lot of the confusion comes from, is you're supposed to be like, do I fit in with my village? I'm going to be a baker. Am I a good baker? Am I learning it well? Am I going to do a good job? But the things that you're doing, it's not as easy to tell how that's going to relate to what you really do in real life. So what you're doing right now is not exactly real life. But you still have this really strong urge, because of all these chemicals in your brain, to fit in with society and to start being a person who stands on his own. And so I think what happens is you start making up stuff. I'm not fitting into real society. I'm not going to be graduated from college in forever. So let's start paying attention to other things. So we start making fun of each other for stupid stuff. Right? Is there anybody in the room who's never been made fun of by somebody? They'll pick on anybody for anything. It's like this. It's like, what? This is how you're supposed to look. If you don't look like that, you're not cool. If you don't listen to the right bands, then somehow you're not cool, because what is that? I mean, I have bands that I like, right? But it doesn't affect my job. I've never had anybody be like, we would hire you, but you listen to country music, so you're not for us. I've never heard a millionaire be like, man, if only I had listened to the Beatles, I would be a billionaire instead of a millionaire. It doesn't affect anything, but we make such a big deal about it, right? People are like, oh, he listens to that kind of music. Oh, he dresses that way. Oh, he wears all black. Oh, she does whatever. And you make this big fake society based on these fake rules that, how long your skirt's supposed to be. You know how there's a length of the skirt that it looks cute, and there's some other length that looks slutty, and there's some other length that it looks awkward or whatever. How there's the perfect length that's kind of right there. There was not a scientist that figured that out, right? Somebody didn't go in the lab and get his chemicals out and be like, oh, I figured it out. This is the perfect length mathematically, and they drew some ratio between your hip and your knee and do all that kind of stuff, right? It doesn't exist because it's made up. And what looks cute now will look weird in 5 years. It's just totally arbitrary. But yet, everybody you know makes it such a big deal. They make it like, this is why, whether you're cool or not, this is how we keep score. This is how we tell whether you're fitting into society or not. Those things in your brain that made you want to fit in with society because it's healthy and you didn't want to be in the forest by yourself, but now you don't have real life to compare against, you just come up with stuff. And it has to do with, you sound funny when you talk, or I don't like your hair color, or I don't like, or you're too tall, or you're not tall enough, or you buy your clothes the wrong place. It's this total made up garbage. And it's how everybody judges everybody else, pretty much. And that's why your life seems so chaotic right now. And why you're like, what is happening? It's because there's all these totally made up rules that don't have anything to do with anything that everybody else uses to judge you. Okay, and you use it to judge other people. So there's all this conformity kind of thing going on. You know, do you fit in? Do you look like us? If so, then we think you're cool. If not, then you're not cool, and that matters. Okay? Now there are some people who are not like that. They're like, I don't care what you think about me. They just seem to like not click with that at all. We'll talk a little bit more about those people in a second. But so I want to start with this. Popularity is a made up game. It's the lunch bell for 8th graders.
So, no, that's not their bell. You can keep going.
I know I've got that much red left on the clock back there. It tells me what I'm talking
Yeah, but these are 8th graders, so you almost sent them to a little skirt to go to lunch.
Oh, okay. 7th grade lunch, not yours. We're good. You're like, lunch? No, I need that. My body needs that fuel. So popularity is a made-up game. Popularity is somewhat important, a little bit, but you cannot make it your focus. If popularity is the only thing you think about, you don't care how you do in your classes, you don't care whatever, you're just like, I want to be popular. You'll have a lot of fun in middle school and high school, but it will eventually destroy you. Here's my example. Okay? Britney Spears knows how to be popular. Okay? Being popular is hard. Britney Spears knows how to do it. She has been popular forever. Okay? She's been popular for a long time. Since she was 15 years old, she's been popular. All day, people are following around with cameras. Right? That's a super hard lifestyle. Do you remember when she shaved her head? Right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I think she's like literally going insane right now. Because it gets to you. Because popularity it's not real like the laws of physics, okay, or like mathematics. It's made up. And it changes all the time. And if your only goal in life is to be popular, it will eventually sort of mess you up in the head. Because you can't predict it. Okay? There are some people who don't really get into the popularity game. Partially that's good, it's because they get this is not what really matters in the real world. Okay? But there may be some other reasons for that. Oh no, look at this little passage here. You may have read this book before. I have a question for you. My question is, what is Bella's mood in this passage? Okay, give you a little bit of time to read that. What's her emotions? How's she feeling in this passage? So who thinks they have an idea? You probably don't even have to read the whole passage to have some sort of idea. What do you think?
Yeah.
Is she scared? I think so. I think she's kind of freaking out in this passage. What did you use to figure that out?
It says, like, how can
Okay. So she's worried about her mom, right? She's panicked, right? It says panicked. She's lying. Okay. Here's another passage. This is from Romeo and Juliet. And same question. What's Juliet's emotional situation like? Is this a little harder? was a research study done in the 60s, I think, that shows that when two people communicate, what they hear is not just based on the words. If I say to you, cool necklace, you're like, oh, cool, thanks. If I say, cool necklace, do you feel, you hear how that feels different? My words are identical, right? Cool necklace. But in one of them, it sounded like I was giving her a compliment. In the other one, my facial expression was different and my tone of voice was different, and it kind of felt like I was making fun of her. Right? Did you feel that a little bit? It's kind of subtle, but I still think it's really good. I'm not really sure what I mean. That only 7% of what people hear is based on the words you choose to say, and the other 93% is based on tone of voice and body language. That is why this is harder, because this is only words. It does not have body language. It does not have tone of voice. It's just words. Okay? And that's what makes this difficult to read. I never understood that, because I always understood Shakespeare. Even in like middle school, whenever I'd read Shakespeare, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. I can follow that. It's cool. And all my classmates would be like, I don't get it. What's it saying? How do you do that? What's going on? I'd be like, it's right there. Because what I learned, when I was 21 years old, I learned that I basically can't hear the 55% of communication that's nonverbal. I have a condition called Asperger's syndrome, probably, and it makes me so that I'm super bad at reading body language and facial expressions and tone of voice to some extent. I can hear the words just fine. Like, I'm not deaf, right? My hearing's good. If you say words, I can hear the words. All my entire life, I was figuring out what was going on based on only the words. Just like this. Which is why I can read this and I can be like, Juliet is freaking out. Okay? I mean, if you read the whole story, the nurse has met with Romeo secretly, and the nurse has a message from Romeo to give to Juliet, but he hasn't given the message yet, and so Juliet is freaking out because she wants to know what Romeo has to say. For me, when I read this, it's pretty obvious, because I'm reading the words, and all my life, all I've had is words to use to interpret how people are behaving. But when people said words, but their body language said something different than their mouth was saying with their words, I didn't always get it. And even worse, I didn't know that I wasn't getting it until I was 21 years old. I became aware that I wasn't hearing that kind of thing. And it was crazy. I was like, holy cow. No wonder girls won't go out with me. Like, you know, not in a bad way, but I would like talk to people, and I would say, and I felt like I'm having this conversation, and she, you know, she's being polite to me, and, you know, she's not like going, you know, when I approach her, she's not freaking out and running away when I talk, so I'm thinking maybe something's going on here. And so I ask her out, and she's like, I'm not interested in you. I'm like, oh, I thought you were. Well, you know, how did I miss that? And now I know it's because I was missing this whole nonverbal part of the communication. A few years ago, at Leander High School, two girls got in a fight. It was a pep rally, they were all jammed together, and then they started fighting, right? And they were all like punching each other and stuff, and grabbing their hair and all this thing. And so I broke it up, like, get off each other. You know, so I pulled them off each other, and they're like, you know, holding apart, and they're like yelling at each other and all that. And so I talked to this one girl for a while. I'm like, what are you doing? You know better than that. And these were, you know, I don't know, they're not girls from my classes or anything, so they weren't. And so I broke them up and talked to the one girl for like a minute and a half. And then I was like, we got to go to the AP's office. And we got to go to the principal's office because you're in trouble. We need to get this going. So we were going to the office, and I like turned around to like talk to one of the other teachers for a second, and they ran off when I was like turned around. Did you know that later I couldn't remember what they looked like? They brought this girl and they said, we think this is the girl who was fighting, but we're not sure. You talked to her for like a minute and a half. Is this the girl? And I'm like, I can't tell. I can't, because I'm not real good with faces. I can see faces and I won't remember what the face looks like later. when I see it. It takes me a long time. I may like make eye contact with you like 20 times, and I could go home later and try to visualize your face, and I couldn't. I could remember that you're a girl, that you have like dark hair, but that's probably it. That I can visualize. But I didn't know that for a long time, and so I started like learning to work on that, like slowly over time. These things, because I learned that I was basically deaf to these nonverbal communication, which is such a big part of how we communicate with people. So I started doing that. I got pretty. I'm better. I'm way better now. I'm married. I got a girl who said yes. I do like you. So I've come a long way. You can see I wasn't always quite as awesome as I am now. This is me in middle school. Right there, so you can see how pretty awesome I was there. Pretty awesome haircut there. Pretty awesome glasses. Pink shirt. Skinny tie. So, yeah. I'll talk about that in a second. Do you know that I've had to learn some of these social rules like later? Some of you guys just kind of pick them up naturally. You kind of naturally know this outfit looks good, this outfit looks bad. This person is being nice to other people, this person is being rude, unintentionally. You can just sort of tell. Well, I couldn't, and so I had to learn it. So now, hopefully I don't look too much like a dork, right? Did you know this is basically a costume? I'm not wearing this because I looked in the closet and said, oh, I think I'll wear that. I'm wearing this because I know there are grown-ups in this building who care what I look like, and they expect me to dress professionally. And this is basically what a grown-up should look like. And so I'm dressed like what they think a grown-up should look like. I don't care what I wear. If I had picked out my own clothes, I probably would have some dorky t-shirt on about something obscure that you wouldn't get the joke. And I would have some cargo shorts on with 50 pockets. I'd be wearing flip-flops, and that would be it. But there are grown-ups who would be like, man, you don't look professional. And I don't care how I dress. So if I don't care how I dress and they do, what does it hurt me to dress like they want me to? I'm the same person, whether I wear this or a stupid t-shirt, right? It doesn't make me a different person on the inside, right? I'm not lying by wearing these clothes, because I don't care. But they do, so why not? Why not look nice? If it doesn't change me, right, then why not look nice? If you know the rules and you can look nice, why not? What does it hurt you? It doesn't change who I am. When I went to go apply for a job at Leander High School, I went in for an interview, and they were going to hire me to be a computer science teacher. And at the time, my hair was pretty long, I think longer than hers. My hair was. And they said, man, we like you. You're a really good guy. You seem like you really know your stuff. You're going to be a good teacher. We'll hire you, but you have to cut your hair. So what do you think I said? I said, yes, sir. Because who cares, right? Am I a better teacher if I have short hair or long hair? No. I mean, it's shallow, right? Who cares how long my hair is? What if it's purple? What if I have some, eyebrow piercing, right? It doesn't matter. But some people care, and if it doesn't matter to me, why not? Why not cut my hair? Why not dress nice? It doesn't matter to me either way, so why not, why get in fights about something that doesn't matter, like what I'm wearing? So that's something that was a huge thing for me, and that it really helped me to get along better with other people. I'm still the same person on the inside, but on the outside of me is more like they expect me to look, so they're less freaked out. They're more likely to just talk to me, because I look more normal to their brain. I'm still weird on the inside, right? But I look more normal, and so they're more likely to just give me a chance. And that was a big thing that I learned. So let me give you some tips for making friends. Not that you don't have any friends, but there's some things you probably are not aware of. Number one, you should try to find out things from people instead of hearing things about people. You know how people like to talk about other people? And all day you're hearing rumors about her and what he did. Did you know that he did this and he got in trouble for this? And you're hearing it second and third hand. What I have learned to do, because I'm pretty good at remembering details, and so I read stuff, and I'm pretty good at actually finding information online about people. And so I'm just I just pretend it's all fake. unless you tell me directly, then I believe it. If you say, I did this, I did that, then I'm like, okay, cool. If she says, do you know what she did? I'll be like, oh, what do you know? And then I just ignore it. I just pretend I didn't hear it. Because it's like, maybe she didn't hear correctly, maybe she saw something and she misinterpreted it. You know how you think you know what went down, and you were watching it, but really you didn't know what was happening when they got there. And so I just pretend that unless I find it out directly from people, and that has saved me a lot of trouble. Because I don't get worked up about all these little things. I let people tell me what they want to about themselves. If there's something secret that they want to tell me, they can tell me. I don't want to hear from other people. If I do hear it from some other people, I pretend it's not real. I pretend I don't know. And that's something that served me pretty well. Talk to people yourself. Don't tell him to tell her that she said that he thought, right? What is that about? Okay? If I want to talk to somebody about something, I talk to them. I go to that person and say, hey man, the other day, the thing you did in the cafeteria really made me feel uncomfortable. You know, I thought it was kind of rude, and they may deal with it well, they may not, but I'm at least going to go straight to them and deal with it. I'm not going to involve everybody else in stuff that's not a big deal. Talk to people yourself, one-on-one, and that's been really helpful. One thing that I had to do, though, I was not always comfortable talking to people. Sometimes you get nervous, talking to somebody you don't know very well, and so what I have learned to do, and this sounds stupid, but I actually do this, I practice. I practice talking. Like sometimes when I'm by myself, I'll just like say things out loud, like what I'm going to say. Sort of like practice where I'll write it down beforehand. Or when I go out shopping and I'm going to the checkout line, I'll just like strike up a conversation with the checkout person just to practice. And just to be like, hey, so how's your day going? You know? And you know, is it pretty busy? I know Christmas time's coming up. You know, is it get busier here at the grocery store? Is it about the same? You know, and I'll just talk for like 30 seconds. And then I'm done, and then I move on. Because if you're not good at talking to people, you can get better, but only if you practice. If you never talk to anyone, you're never going to get any better at talking to people. You're not just going to magically know how to do it. Right? You've got to try it. Just like you might not be really good at football, but if you practice it, you can get amazing at it. Right? You may not know how to play guitar, but if you practice it, you can be good at it. You can practice having a conversation. And it's something that you will get better at the more you do it. Number 3. Knowing details about someone does not mean you know somebody. Just because you know how they dress and what bands they listen to, and you know this fact about their family or where they live or what they did or whatever, people are different, right? Just because I listen to music where the guy screams doesn't mean I'm angry. Or doesn't mean that I'm mean. Right? Facts about me are not the same thing as me. You are not your facts. Okay? If you're tall, if you're short, if you're skinny, if you're, blonde, if you have dark hair, if you, whatever. Those describe you, but they are not you. Does that make sense? And so try to do that with other people. Everybody's different. People are unpredictable, they're inconsistent, they don't always want the same things, they don't always like the same things. And so try to separate details about someone from who that person really is. Okay? Because that's something that you will help out a lot with your relationships as well. So, like if I meet somebody who's in my class and they're super awesome, and then I find out that they smoke weed, I'll be disappointed, right, that this kid smokes weed. I'm like, that's kind of a dumb thing to do. But I already thought they were awesome for like 3 months. It doesn't really affect, because the person I thought I knew is still that person. I just know a little tiny extra detail, right? Or if I find out that somebody's parents are getting a divorce, it's like, it affects a little bit how I deal with that person, but they're still the same person that I thought that I knew, basically. I try not to let little facts, when I do find out that they do stupid stuff, I'm like, what are you doing? And I get into arguments with people on the internet. So, anyway. But knowing details about someone is not the same as knowing somebody. I think that's an important thing. And I want to hit this real quick before I get to the next point. It's about relationships. There are more stages in relationships than you think. Most of you are kind of like Strangers, friends. I'm a stranger, I'm a friend, that's it. There's a lot in between. There's people you don't know at all. They're literally unknown to you. Like some dude in China, right? He's not a stranger because you don't even know he exists. Right? Now, if he gets on a plane and he comes to the cafeteria, he sits in there, and you see him in the cafeteria, now he's a stranger. Because now you know he exists. You don't know anything about him, but he's a stranger. Before that, he's totally unknown. Then, if you meet somebody, you know their name, you know some stuff about them, you talk to them sometimes, you may be sitting next to them in class because the teacher, rearranged the seating chart, and now you're sitting right by them, and so you talk to them sometimes, you ask them what's up on the assignment. That's called an acquaintance. An acquaintance is somebody you see frequently and you interact with sometimes. You're polite, right? But that's not necessarily a friend. A friend is someone that you spend time with when you don't have to. You walk home from school together, or you go sit by them in the cafeteria, or if there's a fire drill and you're outside and you could go stand by anybody in that huge crowd of people, you go over there by them, right? Or they would come stand over by you. That's friendship. When you both are interested in spending time with each other, that's what friendship looks like. You choose to do that. I hate to break this to you, most of you have a lot less friends than you think. Most of you have acquaintances. You have people that know who you are, and they'll talk to you, but they wouldn't come over to your house necessarily. Those are called acquaintances. Most of your people who are friends on Facebook, they're actually just acquaintances. Okay? And friendship is just, you don't know when it's going to happen. You're going to meet 100 people in school, in life. Out of those 100 people, you might click with 5 of those. Where you just sort of get along naturally. Out of those 5, maybe 1 or 2 you might have sort of a really close connection with eventually. All right? And you only know that by spending time with each other, having shared experiences. That's where that comes. So don't think that just because somebody talks to you that they're your friend. Okay? That's not a bad thing. You don't have to be friends with everybody. You should be polite to everybody. Right? You should be nice to everybody. But you don't have to be friends with everybody. That's okay. Friends, you both have to want it to be friends. And so just be aware of that. My last point, and then I'll let you guys go, is about growing up. I used to think that when you were 40, you felt different on the inside than you did when you were 12. Right? Because they act different, right? So it seems like they feel different about things. But now that I'm getting older, I'm learning that I feel the same on the inside with my emotions now than I did when I was 10. I still get frustrated. I still feel embarrassed. I still get nervous. I still get angry. I get freaked out. Sometimes I want to be by myself. Sometimes I want to be social. I want people to pay attention to me. My emotions are the same. I'm the same guy I was when I was 10. But, so why do they act different, right? Because right now you're in this phase where your brain has a feeling, has an emotion, and bam, you do something. You say something, you start crying, you punch somebody, you act. There's almost no gap between the emotion and the action. Because that's about all your brain can do right now. But once you start getting a little bit older, this is something you can actually, just like I can get stronger by working out, I can make my muscles stronger, you can actually work on this. There's this gap in here where you have this emotion, right? You feel nervous or you feel angry or whatever. And instead of doing something immediately, and I see this with my high school kids, like the seniors, they have half a second where their brain kind of kicks in and just wait, maybe I should, and then they do whatever. They just barely start to think about what they're doing. As you get older, that gets longer. So your emotions are the same. You still get freaked out, you still get angry, you still feel happy, you feel awesome, you feel confident, whatever. But the way you choose to act, you have longer to decide what to do before you have to do something. That between when I feel like doing something and when I actually do something, it starts to grow and that gap gets like that. That's called maturity. And you start to get like that. And that's something that you can work on so that you can be, so that you are more in control of your behavior. Right? And that's one of the reasons why adults are different. So, that's my 3 main points. Number one, popularity is a stupid game. You have to play it because it's part of life. If that's all you do, it'll destroy you. But most of what you're having to do right now is made up. And things like how hard you work is going to be so much more effective in determining whether you're successful in life than the things that people are laughing about you now. Number two, though, social skills can be really helpful. It's something that you can learn. You can get better at social skills. It's something that you can teach yourself so that, when you're my age, you can be awesome like me. Mostly not quite as awesome as me. And number three, grown-ups feel the same on the inside as you do, but they have longer to think about their actions before they take them. And that's what their maturity comes in, and that's what they believe. So you guys have lunch in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening so long.
Okay, couple of things.
Yeah.
I didn't really debrief with y'all or set y'all up to come in here, so I want to take just a minute at the end. Mr. Mitchell is amazing, and he has an amazing message. He's awesome. Everybody say awesome and not amazing.